So let's talk about waterproofing a foundation. Waterproofing the foundation is one of the essential parts of maintaining your home. When you are living in an area where you have a lot of clay soils and stuff, as water comes off the roof of the house or runs across the top of the ground, if it doesn't have a way to run off away from the foundation, it will eventually seep in underneath and through the foundation, and then you'll get a lot of moisture underneath your house that you do not want. Our house was built on a hillside. We had to make sure that any water that was running towards the foundation was immediately removed. To solve that problem, we installed a French drain system around the foundation. Now, our dogs have done a great job here digging this up for you to look at, but and I have to come back and fill this in. But you can see that this French drain is probably about 4 to 6 inches below where our dirt line is, or it should be. It gets a little shallower back in here, and that's probably why they've dug this out. The way that this works is as water comes down and it seeps into the soil, a lot of it should run off. You can see how this is graded down and away from the house. And grading is a huge part of waterproofing your foundation. Now I'll get a little more into that in a few minutes. But some of the water will tend to sit close to the house and saturate the soil and sink down below. So what this French drain does is it helps capture that water, and then it runs it through along the side of the house, and through in different areas we have runoffs where it will run out into the yard, and this French drain runs out and eventually just kind of opens up somewhere. So our water is being sucked away and moved away from the house through these French drains. This is a great way to start waterproofing your foundation. Another important aspect to waterproofing your foundation are gutters around your house. If you don't have gutters, you definitely need to have something like rock down below. What will happen is if you don't have rock or gutters, the runoff from the water on your roof is going to come down and penetrate the soil and create divots. This divot is one that was created by dogs, but it would look similar if it was runoff coming down from the house, and it will actually run down and wash away all the soil that's there and create a divot in there which can pool and hold water. That water will eventually seep into the soil and go underneath your house. The objective of waterproofing a foundation is to keep the underside of the house as dry as possible. These French drains are step number 1. Gutters are step number 2, and if you're not going to install gutters, make sure you have a lot of drainage rock around that house. The drainage rock will keep the water from eroding away the soil and creating divots and pooling, while also allowing the water to kind of drain down into your French drain system. These are kind of a newer system. They haven't been used as much until, you know, maybe the last 10 or 15 years. If you don't have one of these French drain systems around the foundation of your house, I would highly suggest doing it. It's going to make a huge difference on the humidity levels underneath your house and just the overall longevity of your home. Moisture is a very bad thing for homes. Waterproofing the foundation in this respect definitely helps out. Another thing that you'll probably notice with a lot of older homes built even in the 90s, is the grading situation. The house nowadays, you have to have about a 2 to 4% grade going out and away from the house at least 10 feet. The reason for this is you need to direct the water flow, the surface water, away from the house. This is helping to control the water that penetrates the soil, but the surface water you still want to have going away from the house. That's part of your waterproofing process. What we did around this house, because in a lot of older houses you'll notice sometimes the hillside goes into the house, sometimes it's real flat. If you go into the basement of those houses or you go into their crawl spaces, you'll notice the moisture problems. Those can all be fixed simply by grading. If we came in here and we graded all the way around the house, we dug it out and brought in fill dirt and filled up alongside. This is all fill dirt. So this ground level is actually higher than it initially was, and then we smoothed it out going away from the house so that all the water that comes down in and around our house immediately runs off and starts going downhill. By having that initial grade, it causes the water to flow before it really penetrates the soil, and it's flowing out and away from the house. So grading is probably one of the most essential parts of waterproofing a foundation. And it's probably even more important than these French drains or gutters. Obviously, the gutters probably would be second, or some sort of rock around your foundation. The French drains are kind of third. They're really kind of an extra to make sure that you're getting as much water away from the foundation as possible. We actually have some French drains also underneath the house because we have natural springs on our property, area where water tends to come up with certain amounts of moisture. One of them happens to be in the very back of our house. So we have this system also underneath the house collecting any water that may build up in our walk-in area below the house. Hopefully this information gives you a little bit of knowledge as to how to waterproof a foundation and why waterproofing a foundation is important.